Okay, I thought you
Yeah.
were getting that rolling.
I was, but I am.
I didn't hear recording in process.
That's the only one that does it.
Okay.
Good evening. This is the work session for Northfield City Council. April 18th, 2023. This meeting has been properly advertised in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 271, Chapter 231 in the Press of Atlantic City on January 7th of 2023. May I have a flag salute led by Council President Pro Tem Deweese, please?
Please be seated.
Roll call, Mrs. Bucci?
Here.
Mrs. Carfano?
Here.
Mr. Deweese?
Here.
Mr. Leeds?
Here.
Mr. Notaro, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here.
For the record, Mr. Notaro was participating by Zoom. Mr. Smith, Mr. Palestina,
Here,
and Mr. Chow. Mr. President?
thank you. First, I want to point out that the new seating we got, thank you, Ms. Knese, for spearheading that. It looks wonderful. And a lot better than the benches were kind of wonky is the word they use, but these will be a lot better for the future. And yeah, you have a desk now. All right. Move right along into the I guess we'll start with the presentation. We have Joe Henry from Hardenberg Insurance, our risk manager.
Good evening. How are you? Thank you for having me. You may have been here last year. As you know, I come here annually as a requirement of your GIF safety committee requirement. You have to have a safety committee, which is spearheaded by Shannon, does a wonderful job. All departments are represented, and also to present some type of a safety topic annually. And as you can see from the handout, I'll move very quickly through it. Avoiding complacency and managing risk. The reason I went with complacency, and anything I say related to claims did not happen here in Northfield. It's incidents in the GIP elsewhere. So with COVID happening as it did, lots of things didn't get done for a couple of years. People became complacent. We started to see a rise in claims. So we wanted to get back to where we were prior to COVID. And that's kind of what this little presentation is about. And I'll share this with the safety committee when we get to the next meeting with Shannon, so you have it available for all your staff. So if you go right to page 3 here, complacency, I've got the Webster's version here, but basically it's being too secure in your work and taking potentially dangerous shortcuts. I've got listed in here, it's extremely dangerous in the workplace. And the last bullet showing that failure to notice changes in the work environment can occur, and I can assure you that actions will follow, which is why we're speaking about complacency. Moving on, 3 causes of accidents. I didn't think, I didn't see, and I didn't know. Supervisors' incident reports are done every time there's an accident, and from that, these are the comments we get from the employees. And again, not just here, it's everywhere. So we like to let them know, think before you act, but before you start. And above all, if you don't know, be sure to ask. But we know that risk is an everyday event. There's 3 things we can do, and Mary and Helen from my office have had discussions on what we do and such things as I've listed community day events. The ever famous bounce house I've used here as an example. We can avoid it, simply say we don't recommend you do it, but we don't like to kill all the fun. We do see those. And incidentally, 2 weeks ago, we saw our first bounce house fly away in New Jersey at an Easter event. You can transfer the risk, which is what Mary makes sure that she has in place, proof of insurance from the vendors. And the last one, to control it, we want to make sure the vendors are using it properly and making sure that the right amount of people are entered into a bounce house, so things don't happen that shouldn't. So before you start, ask the following: what am I working with? What will I be doing, and what could go wrong? The last item there, review the hazard assessment I've listed. Hazard assessments are required for every municipality for every task that's done. They're required by OSHA. What the assessment will do is show you what hazards are involved with that type of work and the proper safety equipment that is required for that type of task. Of course, our goal on page 7 is prevention. We want to make sure that these things don't happen, and if they do, we want to stop, think, act safely, find out why they happen, and see that they don't happen again. So how can you assist your employees? And this is what we'll discuss at the safety meeting. Signing a mentor, put an experienced employee with an inexperienced employee. Do self-assessments, let the employee tell you their strengths and weaknesses. Perform job safety assessments or job safety observations. They show you immediate feedback, what the employees are doing negatively and positively. We don't just dwell on the negative. We let them know that they're doing a good job when things are done properly. And provide training. As I noted, the JIF is always available to provide training at all different levels. PPE on the next page can be your key personal protective equipment. It's essential in all tasks performed. Find out what you need. As I mentioned earlier, if you don't know, be sure to ask, use it properly, keep it with you. Inspect it, keep it clean, and above all, replace it when worn. That's particularly important for firefighters. If it's not working properly, it's not going to do them any good. Use your resources. I mentioned previously, the JIF can help. Employee had it done, so it would have certainly killed him. A investigation after the fact was done. I'm happy to say that the employee suffered a separated shoulder going out of work for a couple of weeks, so that was the good ending. So I mentioned earlier, incident supervisors reports. One was done on this. It was discovered that the crew took it out in the morning, put the piece of machinery back. Another crew came and took it at lunchtime, swapped out the bucket for a fork. When they were done, they put the bucket back on. The crew that came back to use it later in the day did not do a pre-inspection, which is a requirement. Had they done that, they would have found out that the safety pin was not in correctly. And when it was used, as the illustration shows, it separated, causing injury to the employee. So those were the lessons learned from that. Very important to do the pre-inspection and to let somebody know if you've used their equipment. And also, the solution to all that is on this last page, a $300 auger, 2-man auger. Easily could have dug those holes to put those posts in. It would have been done very quickly, and OSHA would frown upon the fact that a front-end loader is being used to put fence posts in. So moving on to the last page, again, I mentioned the supervisor's incident reports, very, very important. These are quotes taken from those after accidents, from the employees involved. We always did it that way. It's not always the best way. I must have done this 1,000 times. It never happened before. I know I put the safety switch on before the accident. I thought my window was down, but found it was up when I put my head through it. And my favorite is the last one. The accident happened because I had one eye on the big truck in front, one eye on the pedestrian, and one eye on the car behind me. So even though the employee had 3 eyes, he still struck the vehicle in front of him. So lots of lessons can be learned from doing those reports, which we find out in our everyday events. So that concludes this year's topic of avoiding complacency. If there's any questions related to the safety committee, I'd be happy to answer those for you. If not, I will move out of your way and you can get the business.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thanks, Joe.
thanks, Mayor, appreciate it.
Joe, can I get a hard copy of that presentation? Never mind, I got time.
Got one.
Okay,
I got one now again too.
I'll email it to you tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, and Shannon.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. Councilman Leeds.
Thank you. One thing I want to note is tomorrow, the Pleasantville Fire Department, crew that respond to our working fire, will be presented with a Valor Award for saving the lives in administrator/city clerk with Linwood about the shared dispatch service, and we're moving ahead forward with that. I'll let Councilman Smith talk more about that, but it's looking very positive. And that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you. Councilman DeWeese,
Just got brighter in here.
just for you, spotlights are on.
Couple things, the sign out front, the new sign out front, we have a vendor that's been approved and, you know, to do the repairs, specifically some lightings to illuminate the sign at night. We're having a difficult time getting them to show up, and so we're still working with that. We'll give them a couple more weeks to come through. And then, if we don't have any resolution, we'll move on. The same company is actually hired to do the work out at the football snack bar building as well, the electric work we have out there. So Quinn has been on top of them, been calling them regularly, so we'll keep pushing there. If there's nothing happening in the next week or so, we'll move on.
Take care of this
Yes.
one as well.
Timing is everything, Ed. That's all that I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bucci.
For Municipal Alliance, the next event is the Bike Skills Through Life Skills event on May 20th at 10:30 a.m. It's open for grades 1 to 6. It's going to take place at the Tuckahoe Bike Shop on Tilton Road. So pre-registration is required. So if you want to attend that, you need to reach out to Shannon Campbell at City Hall. As far as Economic Alliance or Economic Development, I just wanted to mention 3 new businesses that will be opening in Northfield. Little Saigon, which is where the Friendlies used to be, will be opening. I don't have a date for them. Lily Lotus Aesthetics is in the old Sykes building. They've had a soft opening. They've not had their actual grand opening. And there's also a Nana's Grill, which is on the corner of New Road and Ridgewood. It's where I forget what used to, Fresca used to be there, so that's gonna be opening too. And Council President, that's it for me.
Oh, thank you. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have some items to discuss regarding the court. We did a 10-day meeting with Hamilton. A few of the members of council did go to visit the court at Hamilton. I know we're going to be discussing that in executive session today, so we'll discuss that more at that time. Some of the details, I know you have a copy of that. Everyone has a copy of that resolution. But Councilwoman Carfagno and Bucci and myself did attend and visit the court and speak with the officials in Hamilton, so we can talk more about that later. Northfield Little League did have their opening successfully this past weekend, so we wish them all the success for a healthy and weather-free season, that they can get all their games in good time. Northfield Community School, there is a budget presentation that we have been invited to. I know Ms. Kanisi did send out an email to all of us. That meeting will be at the next board meeting for the Northfield School Board on April 24th at 7 p.m. So everyone is invited. I know I will be in attendance at that meeting. I think we can only have 3 there, I suppose. I have a game in Vineland that day, but I hope to be in attendance nonetheless. Following that. And finally, shared services. Councilman Leeds did mention we just had a meeting today with Linwood regarding dispatch. We're moving forward with investigating the costs. Right, we have received some proposals. We are going to be putting together a matrix to share with council, hopefully at the next meeting, to give some of the details of the proposal for moving forward with dispatch. We received the quotes from Motorola and what was the other one? And
PMC Wireless.
PMC. So we hopefully will have some information to share with you in short order regarding the proposals for that and moving forward on that end. And that's all I have, Mr. President.
Was there any movement on looking for, I think there were some grants for that?
Right, it's up to actually, I think Linwood is gonna be moving forward with, they have a couple of grant writers on their
Okay.
PD force, and they're gonna be looking into those. We do have a deadline deadline for that, but they did indicate that they will begin that process tomorrow, putting together that grant proposal.
Thank you. Mrs. Carfagna.
Thank you, Council President. The only thing I really have on here is there's a Board of Education meeting for Mainland, April 27th. It starts at 5:30 for the budget, and then followed by the regular meeting. And also, this is something really cool, if anybody can go. Longtime Northfield Community School teacher, Mary Ann Devine, sponsoring the Honor Flight this Thursday, April 20th. All are welcome to come out to the parking lot on Mill Road. If you could be there at 5 a.m., everybody who likes to wake up early like me, or you can go at 9:45 at night. Both would be great. And if you could bring posters, that would even be greater. We have 8 individuals, 8 veterans who are going down to Washington DC this year. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know how you want to put this, but this will be the last time that Northfield Community School and the NJHS is sponsoring this event. So hopefully somebody else takes it over, because it's a really awesome thing. I know, it's really sad. And for anybody who's never been, try to go out. It's awesome. It gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling, and the veterans love to see people there, and the firefighters do an awesome job, and the police officers do an awesome job of representing the town. It's really cool to go to see. So 5 a.m. on the 20th or 9:45 at night. Thank you.
9:45. Thank you. Councilman Notaro?
Thank you, Council President. I have no report this evening.
Councilman Notaro, are you prepared to give your committee report?
I did, can you hear me?
Looks like we're having issues again, can't hear him.
Can you hear me? I unmuted. Can you hear me?
Councilman Notaro, I can see that you're speaking, but unfortunately we cannot hear you.
Okay, how do I type? Chat.
Okay. Little technical difficulties here. I guess I just do it on my
Does
phone.
that work? Did that work?
Yeah, I got you on I have you on speaker and everybody's in the meeting.
Okay. I have no report this evening, Council President. Thank you very much. And I will mute myself, then unmute when needed.
Okay.
Perfect.
Dave?
Dave?
I just did an adjustment to the speaker. Can you see if you can speak in Zoom again for me, please?
Try to speak into Zoom again.
Yeah.
No, well, I'll leave you on speaker on my phone and maybe it'll work.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. For my committee reports, the one thing I will mention is that from the finance collection side, we did have 6 tax appeals this year, which is significant because I think over the past 10, 20 years, it's been significantly higher than that every year. So it seems like things have leveled out, and hopefully moving forward, we're more stable with our tax base. Is there any reports on any of the ad hoc committees? I know that we have not met on the electric vehicles, but we will have something at the next meeting.
I have on food trucks. Food trucks, we had our second meeting, and I believe Mary's working up the rough draft on that, and that'll be circulated to the committee. And retail cannabis, we're still trying to schedule a meeting with Leo Schofer.
Okay,
I did send to everybody the article from, I believe it was the Current, with regards to the meeting in Summers Point.
Yeah.
And the presentation by Max Slusher from the Atlantic County Economic Alliance that kind of, did I not send it to you, Chris?
You did.
Okay. So it kind of gave a rough numbers on potential income from that. I think the article gave Summers Point credit for income from Down Beach. I think that Northfield would capture that more effectively because they're running down Tilton Road, right? To go to the Down Beach, so we would kind of collect that. So the rough number was about 316,000 in income. I know EHT charges $10,000 per license. But I do think we need to speak to the police chief with regards to any concerns that he may have regarding that, and that's what I have. That's my update. So we're not ready for like a
Yeah,
formal, but that's
no,
kind of.
thank you. Good, thanks for the update. On the other work session topics, we again, are still have not heard back on those two properties that have been out for auction, and there was interest, as we mentioned several times, but we have not heard back from Habitat, and we continue to reach out to them, but there's not been any movement at this time. And I don't, Councilman Notaro, did there, okay, that's right,
Yeah, I did review
Solicitor?
the ordinance that was given to me by Councilman Notaro on the cooperative sober living residences. I wanted to take some time and discuss that with him, and try to get some examples of what other towns are doing. Generally, I think I'm okay with the way it's drafted, but I think it could use some tweaking.
okay,
All right.
thank you. The grants, I think, are we,
I received a notice today that the grants are open until June 2nd. I have to look at what the grants are. Just an email came from the DOT this morning.
the DOT?
Yeah, I don't know what kind of grants are there, so I'm not sure if it's miscellaneous or something else, so I'll check.
Thank you. Affordable housing, we had it at the last council meeting, so there's nothing more to report there.
We're gonna create a committee?
That's for us to create a subcommittee.
Yes, that
I
was
need-
requested by our Affordable Housing Council.
That's correct. Thank you for reminding me. I take terrible notes. Is there anyone that could join me on this committee for the affordable housing?
I will.
Thank you. Myself and Councilwoman Carfagno.
I think Dave said he was the other. I heard it.
I heard it too.
And I think by default, Chris, you and I are probably part of that.
That's fine.
Okay. We do have something scheduled at 7, so we'll move on to, actually, we can start with the public session at this time. We have some time now before that. At this time, we'll open this meeting to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any matter, we ask that you please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and observe a 5-minute limit per speaker. I think my 5 minutes are up. Mrs. Gill.
How you doing, everyone? Joseph Sweeney, 1206 First Street. We've done some research for you. Wanted to
Okay.
bring it to you, so I wasn't sure if you guys had any other kind of,
I did a little bit myself, too.
the first one, you'll understand. The rest of it is on what other states and federal regulatory, I guess you would call them, the FDA, the Federal Department of Agriculture, have deemed the potbelly pig as a pet, as a domesticated pet,
Mhm.
not as a farm animal. Pennsylvania has, Delaware has, Rutgers University. So just wanted to give you all that information to help you with your research and your decisions. You know, and again, I understand that this is not something that's gonna happen overnight.
Thank you.
Okay, all
I
right?
appreciate your understanding, and we'll
Yes.
borrow these and get them back
No,
to
you
you.
can keep them, we have copies.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
all right, we'll make copies for us then as well. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? And is there anyone in Zoom? Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Okay. Seeing no one, the public session is now closed. Could everyone please refer to your agendas? Approval of the minutes. Councilwoman Carfagno, Councilman Leeds. Resolutions 91 and 92, 2023, by a consent agenda, Councilman Smith and Councilman DeWeese. Resolution 77B 22, Councilwoman Bucci, Councilman Leeds. 77C, Councilwoman Bucci and Councilman Leeds. Ordinance 3, Councilman DeWeese and Councilwoman Carfagno. And resolutions 93 through 103. Is there any on there that anyone would like pulled from a consent agenda?
You can't do
Okay,
2 and 3, 1 or 2 and 3 are after executive,
okay,
so you can go, I would just do
Through-
100.
through 100. Any others that we need pulled? Okay, through 100, Councilman Leeds and Councilwoman Bucci. 100, Councilman Leeds and, oh, I'm sorry. 101. Councilman Leeds, Councilwoman Bucci. 102, Councilman Smith and Councilwoman Carfagno. And 103, Councilwoman Bucci and Councilman DeWeese.
Just a note for the record, 102 and 103, if acted upon tonight, will happen after the executive session, not in the executive session. I just think the agenda kind of looks like it's in executive.
Thank you. Payment of bills. Councilwoman Carfagno, Councilman Smith, and meeting notices, Councilman Smith. May I have a motion to adjourn the work session?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? This is going to be a good night. Start the regular meeting in a minute. Let me get a drink of water. The public session has to start at 7 because we published it for 7. We're gonna have to kill some time. Can't start with the ordinance, we can start with the consent agenda, I guess.
You could do these.
Yeah,
So right now, the only thing you're gonna skip is that.
okay,
Actually, sorry. Skip those two.
yeah, okay.
And then at 7 o'clock, we'll go back to that.
All right, well,
You might get your title back.
on too good of a pace. Who would have thought? All right,
Whenever you're ready.
yeah, we'll do the pledge of allegiance really slow.
Good evening. This is the regular meeting of Northfield City Council, April 18th of 2023. This meeting was properly advertised in the Press of Atlantic City on January 7th of 2023 and in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231. May I have a flag salute led by Council President Pro Tem Deweese, please?
All rise. Salute. Please be seated.
You still there, Dave?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah.
Was he standing?
Roll call, Mrs. Bucci?
Here.
Mrs. Carfagno?
Here.
Mr. Deweese?
Here.
Mr. Leeds?
Here.
Mr. Notaro?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Palestina?
Here.
Mr. Chow? Mr. President?
Thank you. All right, we're going to be jumping around the agenda a little bit because we have certain item that is for 7 o'clock because it was published. So we will start with the resolutions 91 and, since the mayor isn't here, actually, we'll start with the approval of minutes, please.
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from April 4th.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I heard Dave also. The engineer's report.
Thank you, Council President. Prepared my report last week. Just a couple of things we'll discuss with council. The New Jersey American Water Company contacted my office Monday. They want to start repaving Putting Green, but before they do that, they decided to do a couple of test bits to determine if there's any damage to their water main in that section they're repaving. So I authorized it, it's okay, you can do it, and after that, the test bits are done, we are going to repave the whole block, so that will be in compliance with our ordinances at that point. The other thing is, as you know, this sewer line repair along Route 9. We did the first section, we did about 20 feet, and we found out that a portion of the pipe burst when they were doing the slip line.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we found the section that really, when we dug down, the clay pipe was not there. So that would cause the problem, but it's still on the contractor, they should have took precautions, or that's on them, it's not on the municipality. We should be finishing this project tonight, hopefully. We have done a 20-foot section, they prepped for the second 20-foot last night, and we should be back there tonight at 8 o'clock for 6 o'clock in the morning. The DOT requires us to apply for a street opening permit, it's an emergency permit. It has to be applied under public works. So I'm gonna prepare the documents and get Quinn to sign the application for the permit. We'll get the contractor to pay for the permit fees and application fees for the permit, and there'll be inspection fees. Every night we have inspector from DOT was out there because it's an emergency situation. They'll be sending an invoice to the municipality, which we are going to pass it to the contractor. So hopefully by tonight we get all wrapped up with the job, will be done. And 60 days from now, they have to send a contractor to repave, mill and repave the entire section in front of the town. Full width. That's the way on the contract.
Full width? Okay.
Yeah, because that road is under moratorium. Besides that, we got new pipes, that's all I can say, unfortunately. Okay. That's my report.
So then we don't need to slip line them.
I have a question. In the engineer's report, I noticed that you said that somebody had requested that we wait until after school's out to do Oak.
Yes, for Oak, the contractor asked if we want, as council, to, thank you, Mayor, that if we want to do the paving after the school is out for Oak Ave, and it's up to council,
I think that makes perfect sense.
so.
Yes.
I'll let him know that he should plan it for like June 15th, or if the school is out.
Yeah, yeah, after school. I don't know what they're,
Yeah, we'll find out the date, and then we'll schedule for that day, for the day after, a couple days after that.
okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
One
Thank you,
other
Rami.
thing. The county, they are going to start to work on Zion Road from the bridge all the way down to Mount. They're starting next Wednesday. I spoke with the chief that they need to hire our police for when they, especially when they cross certain blocks. So they'll be in contact with the police department to do that. But they will
That's in Zion?
Sign from the bridge all the way to Millwood.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, the mayor's not here. Again, we'll open this meeting to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any topic, we ask you to please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and observe 5-minute limit per speaker. If there's anyone in Zoom wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Okay. With that, the public session is now closed. Yeah, we do a consent agenda for resolutions 91 and 92.
I can make the necessary motion to adopt consent, or to adopt 91 to 2023 and 92 2023 by consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yes, I can make the motion to adopt the consent agenda for 91 and 92-2023.
Second?
A roll call?
I'm sorry, something's going on with.
Okay.
Roll call. Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Carfagno?
Here.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Leeds?
Here.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
For the
Mr.
record, can we-
Mr. Leeds?
Sorry, yes.
Did I skip Mr. Leeds?
No, I said here, like Renee did, so she wasn't alone.
Did everybody say yes?
Yes.
I did get sleepless.
Okay.
I did.
Motion carries for the
Any further-
Would
adoption.
you do me a favor, would you recall that roll?
Yes,
Because
please.
of the importance of the municipal budget.
Yes.
It's not the budget,
No.
but it is other things. So sure. This is the roll call for the motion to adopt the consent agenda, which is resolutions 93 of 2023 through 100 of
No,
2000.
no, this is just 91 and 92.
Try again.
Sorry, I was having,
Yeah,
Technical
your
difficulty.
computer was
all right.
fritzing.
So having redisposed, roll call for the consent agenda for resolutions 91 and 92 of 2023, which the solicitor is correct. It's regarding the municipal budget. Mrs. Bucci,
Yes.
Mrs. Carfagno,
Yes.
Mr. Deweese,
Yes.
Mr. Leeds,
Yes. I'm still here.
Mr. Notaro,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Palestina.
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of that consent agenda.
Moving on to the consent agenda for resolutions 93 through 100.
Make the necessary motion to adopt resolution 93, 2023 through 100, 2023 by consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
Any opposed? Any discussion? I just want to say Resolution 100, congratulations to Darren Boyd. This includes his promotion to supervisor, up from acting. So congratulations and thank you for your 20-plus years of service here. May I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Make the necessary motion to adopt resolutions 93, 2023 through 100, 2023 by consent agenda.
A second, sorry.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Carfagno?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Leeds?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of the consent agenda.
Have a motion for Resolution 101, please.
I'd like to make the necessary motion for resolution 1001, 2023 for executive session.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Carfagno?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Leeds?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Resolution 102, please.
No.
No,
Payment of bills.
payment of bills, please.
I'd like to make a motion for the payment of bills in the amount of
We can skip that one.
$4,400,000, okay,
No.
$4,405,805.47.
Second.
Thanks. Oh, my glasses. I told Mary.
That has to be at 7 also.
It's advertised, yeah.
Sorry. Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Carfagno?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Leeds?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for payment of bills.
Meeting notices?
Next city council meeting will be May the 2nd here in Council Chambers, 6 PM work session.
Okay. May I have a motion for, take a recess for 15 minutes because we have public session at 7 o'clock.
What about ordinance 3?
That's a public hearing for that as well, which is advertised at 7.
Roger that.
We went too fast today,
Motion.
not for 15 minutes.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Yeah, unfortunately, we have to take a 15-minute recess to open the public session at 7 PM. Sharp.
Go to the mayor's office, it's food.
Yeah,
He's in the column.
okay. Do a roll call to come back in? Okay. All right, it's 7 o'clock, we're back in. We're going to open up to the public, public session on the budget. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this topic and this topic alone, we ask you please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and observe a 5-minute limit per speaker. Anyone in Zoom wishing to speak? Raise your hand. Okay. We have a motion for resolutions. Oh, public session is now closed. Thank you. Resolution 77B.
I'd like to make the necessary motion to introduce, adopt, resolution 77B-2022.
Second. Is that accurate, 2022, Mayor?
No.
2023.
Should be
I would
23.
like to make the necessary motion to adopt
There's been some meeting.
resolution 77B-2023.
Looked at the agenda meeting.
I'll second that one too.
Thank you.
So Resolution 77B is a resolution to amend the 2023 budget. This accounts for grant revenue for police enforcement patrol that was revenue that was received after the budget was introduced. So we're going to amend the budget by this resolution before we adopt.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Carfagno?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Leeds?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of Resolution 77B of 2023.
May I have a motion for resolution 77C, 2023, to adopt the 23 budget?
I'd like to make the necessary motion to adopt resolution 77C-2023.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Carfagno?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Leeds?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of Resolution 77C of 2023.
Now we'd like to open meeting to the public for ordinance 3-2023. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on 3-2023 and that topic alone, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. And if there's anyone in Zoom, please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Okay. See,
Council President, just real quickly for the record, ordinance 3 was referred back to the planning board after the last go-around. We did receive a memo from the planning board dated April 10, 2023, indicating the planning board's agreement with the content of ordinance 3-2023.
thank you. Roll call? Oh, I'm sorry, we have to introduce, need a motion, please, for ordinance 3?
I'll do that. Make the necessary motion to adopt ordinance 3, 2023.
Second.
Roll call.
That's to be read by title only. Ordinance 3 of 2023 is the City of Northfield, New Jersey ordinance as now amended, which is an ordinance amending Chapter 215 of the Code of the City of Northfield governing land use and development. This is the third reading. It will now be considered for final adoption, and if approved this evening, it will be published in the Press of Atlantic City on April 22nd. Since introduction and further amendment, the ordinance has been posted in full on the municipal website as well as in the lobby of City Hall. Any member of the public who requested a copy of the ordinance would have been provided with one free of charge in the office of the municipal clerk during regular business hours.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn to executive session then? Roll call? Oh, for the ordinance. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Carfagno?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Leeds?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of ordinance 3 of 2023.
Okay, now we need, yeah.
As the council president announced, the council will be moving into executive session, and this was authorized by Resolution 101 of 2023, which was adopted in an earlier portion of the meeting. This is a resolution providing for an executive session not open to the public in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-12B, in this case 7, which covers contract negotiations and matters covered under the attorney-client privilege regarding shared court. During the executive session, council will remain in council chambers. However, any members of the public who are here would be asked to please excuse themselves. During the executive session, the doors will be closed. For those participating by Zoom, the audio and video portions of the meeting will be paused. Council will come back in public after the executive session concludes. The solicitor will make a statement for the record. And when that happens, the doors will be open. Members of the public who are still here will be invited back in, and the audio and video portions of Zoom will also be resumed. We are required at this point to set forth as much information as possible for the public about the subject matter to be discussed, as well as provide for them the amount of time they can expect to elapse before the non-public minutes can be disclosed. And for that, I will defer to the solicitor for comment.
Thank you, Mary. As authorized by Resolution 101-2023, Council for the City of Northfield will enter into an executive session not open to the general public in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Subject matter to be discussed is a joint court agreement, a potential joint court agreement with the town of Hamilton and the city's withdrawal from the Central Municipal Court. All matters that require and fall within the attorney-client privilege and require confidentiality. Council will keep minutes of the executive session as required by law, which will be approved by council and promptly made available for public inspection when required and permitted by law. At this time, the time frame for that is unknown. We do anticipate potential official action tonight following the executive session in the form of resolutions 102 and 103. But before that happens, as Mary indicated, we will return for a statement for the record, at which point council will be free to move or not move resolutions 102 and 103.
Okey dokey.
Okay, motion to adjourn to the executive session? He's on the way to Florida.
Okay, we are back. Mr. Pacendo?
Yes, Council for the City of Northfield has concluded its executive session authorized by Resolution 101, 2023, which was not open to the general public. Subject matter discussed was a contractual negotiation pertaining to the potential joint court with the town of Hamilton, and consequently leaving the central municipal court. Minutes were kept of the executive session. We are back in council chambers right now for potential additional action in the form of resolutions 102 and 103. That's about it.
Thank you. I may I have a motion for resolution 102,
I'd like to
2023.
make the necessary motion to adopt resolution 102-2023.
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Carfagno?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese? Mr. Leeds?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of Resolution 102 of 2023.
I may I have a motion to adopt resolution 103.
I'd like to make the necessary motion to adopt resolution 103-2023.
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Bucci?
Yes.
Mrs. Carfagno?
Yes.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mr. Leeds?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro? Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of Resolution 103.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Bye, Dave. Go cheer. Thank you for staying, Mark.